Okay, so we are live now. So, hi everyone. For the last talk of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, we have with us Sneha Dave, who's an incredible person and an incredible advocate, and we are really excited to have her. And the best thing that I like about Sneha is that she gives voices to others also, and she runs two advocacy organizations, and we are really excited to have with her and listen to her and learn from her. So yeah, so Sneha, if you could just introduce yourself in brief and tell us more about your journey from being a patient to being someone who's the founder of two great organizations who give voices to other people with chronic illnesses.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Nikhil. I'm excited to be here. Is there a little bit of an echo?
Not an echo, but it's breaking. It's okay, I think.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me know if I should repeat anything because I can hear an echo, but if you guys can't, then that's good. So actually, let me see if can you guys mute yourselves for the time being?
Yeah, there's an echo.
Yeah, maybe you can just rejoin again. I guess that would.
Actually, if you guys mute yourself, then the echo should go away.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully. Awesome. Okay. Yay, great. Cool. So yeah, I will give an introduction about myself. So my name is Sneha, and I have lived with ulcerative colitis since I was 6 years old. Probably a little bit before I was 6, but as you guys probably know, the diagnosis journey can take quite a long time sometimes. So no one in my family had any history of Crohn's or colitis. So my parents both immigrated here from India. My mom's from Madhya Pradesh and my dad's from Gujarat, from Ahmedabad. So, and there was no, past history of any sort of digestive disease. So I was kind of the first one in our family, and it was a little bit of a shock for me to, be having a lot of diarrhea and accidents and that sort of thing when I was 6 years old. So throughout elementary school, I was, I had flare-ups pretty off and on. So I was put on a lot of nutritional drinks. I always struggled to gain weight. So that was a huge thing that I've always struggled with kind of throughout since I was diagnosed. So I was, forced to have so many calories a day, and I was on a lot of steroids. And of course, when you're on steroids when you're younger, it affects you later on as well in terms of bone health and everything. Prednisone has a lot of, it can be a great drug, but it also has quite a few side effects. And then middle school, which is kind of, it's 6th grade here is what middle school is. So that's when my disease got really severe. So I started partial schooling. So I didn't go to school a lot. I was in the hospital quite a bit due to the severity of the flare-up. I was on so many different medications, which I know that that's something that's different from India because we have so many different medications that we can try. Unfortunately, none of them did work. So I did get the colectomy during my freshman year of high school, so my freshman year of 9th grade. And so with that, I had the 3-part colectomy. So I had the removal of my colon and an ostomy, and then I had the second part, which was the J pouch surgery, and then that's when I still had the ostomy bag. And then the third part was when I had the ostomy reversal back. So now I just live with the J pouch and I don't have an ostomy. But it was, of course, interesting to go to have an ostomy and have all the leakages and everything throughout most of my high school as well, because, I think kids everywhere aren't very understanding, but in particular in my school it was hard to explain to people what an ostomy was, because it's hard to understand yourself that system can kind of work. And that's the way that you're using the restroom basically. So that was interesting. And then as I was kind of getting back to normal and I had the 3 surgeries, I realized that I needed so much more support. So, for this 5 years that I had my severe flare-up, I was I was very alone. I didn't really have friends. I've lost kind of every part of the social life that existed for people my age. And I was basically just talking to my parents and my older sister throughout the day. And so I had one best friend, and his name was Corey Lane, and he actually had Crohn's disease, but he unfortunately passed away with osteosarcoma, which is a bone cancer. And so together, as I emerged from my first surgery, we realized that we wanted to connect young adults and teens with inflammatory bowel diseases within the state of Indiana. And so we created newsletters to distribute to young adults in Indiana. And there's not many that we could find in Indiana because it's so spread out here. It's not like New York City or Chicago where there's a lot of people in a small space. And so we started with actual in kind of print newsletters. And by that time, we started growing, and we started having people request the newsletters from other parts of the country. So, for example, Ohio, Michigan, and other states. And so we built a website, and then I think about 3 or 4 years later, we were reaching about 10,000 people all around the world with IBD, which was really cool. And then I went to college, and Corey had passed away by then, and I had kind of let the Crohn's and colitis teen times go because I was so busy with college. And so so this is going to get a little probably confusing, so I'm going to try to make it as not confusing as possible. So let me know if I can clarify anything. So at this point, the Crohn's and colitis teen times was kind of at a low point. I wasn't managing it very well or at all. And then I realized as I was going to college that there were so many other challenges that I was facing that were not specific to IBD. So things like navigating the education system, the workplace, insurance here. Insurance here is a nightmare to navigate. Getting appointments with doctors. These were things that I had no clue how to do once I was pushed into independence in college. And so at that point, I wanted to bring together young adults with all different chronic illnesses, because while our, medical journeys might be different, there's still the same psychosocial, vocational, institutional, educational challenges that come about with living with IBD. And so, or a chronic illness. And so we brought together about 14 young adults with chronic illnesses in Indiana in October 2017. And we discussed various topics like the education system, workplace, insurance. And then we built a website for that. And then we started getting inquiries from other states to develop a similar model. So we expanded to North Carolina in conjunction with Duke University in 2018, and then South Texas in conjunction with the University of Texas at Rio Grande Valley, so quite literally on the border of Texas and Mexico, which poses a lot of different cultural perceptions of chronic disease with the Latino population. And then we expanded in 2019 to San Francisco, and then in 2020 we were supposed to be in 6 different states, but that has obviously changed because we can't host in-person events. So we are doing like weekly virtual meetings, other sorts of initiatives to compensate for the fact that we can't meet in person. So then kind of flash back a little bit more. So my freshman year, the Crohn's and colitis teen times had kind of gone down a little bit. And I realized that a newsletter was not the best way to keep continuing to connect our young adult IBD group. And so I decided to kind of reshift the focus into a fellowship program, because I had gotten the opportunity to share my story, and it was really empowering for me. And I felt like if I was able to give that to other young adults with IBD, that would be more powerful than distributing newsletters, which was a lot of work and didn't seem to be reaching young adults more than I had wanted it to. So last year, we had our first year of the fellowship program. We had 3 fellows, and they produced monthly content for the website. They heard from monthly speakers. And then this year, of course, Nikhil knows, because he's one of our second class of fellows. We were able to grow quite a bit because we were able to get funding from a major foundation to support the fellowship program and bring our fellows to an IBD conference in the US, and also provide a stipend to our fellows as well. So things are a little bit different right now with the coronavirus, so we're kind of playing it by ear in terms of when we'll actually be able to go to a conference. But yeah, that's a summary, and it could be confusing because I talk a lot sometimes. So please let me know if I should clarify anything.
No, that's fine. Like Sneha, what I want to ask and what I feel is different about you, and is that you want others to share their stories, and you want, and like if I try to Google about you, then I won't find much about you, and I find much about your work. Like I found much about Health Advocacy Summit, and I find much about CCYN. So why do you think that is like what drives you to do that, and why do you think like that is more important than just telling your story?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Nikhil. So I think, I realized early on, so just to give you a little bit of background, I was not open about my ulcerative colitis for most of my disease journey. So it wasn't until high school, actually, that I opened up about it for the first time. So when I had the PICC line, which is like the IV line that feeds you, I had that twice. I would wear a jacket every single day so people wouldn't see that. And so it wasn't until my freshman year of high school that I became open about it. And I realized that even having the smallest platform to be able to share about my experiences was so empowering, because it was the first time that I was able to articulate something that had been affecting me 24/7 for my entire life, basically. And so I think that giving others a platform, no matter how small or big it is so important. And I hope that you guys can do that as well. And it seems like you are doing that with the Facebook group. Is, it's really important to share your story, but it's also important to give others the opportunity and to make space for others too.
And tell us more about your degree that you invented yourself.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting story.
Yeah. So I just graduated from college about 3 weeks ago, maybe. Yeah, at this point. So I graduated with a degree in journalism because I love journalism, and I love health journalism. And I also graduated with a degree in chronic illness advocacy, which my university allows us to create a major that's specific to our interests. So I designed chronic illness advocacy, and it was cool because I could take classes like anthropology, sociology, psychology, but also classes like organic chemistry, molecular biology. So I get to have a really cool balance, and I know that that's unique to my university. So I'm really lucky that I was able to go there and to do that as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah, amazing, Sneha. Seriously, your life story is seriously so inspiring for us. Like within that short period of time, when you said you were diagnosed with a very young age, and with that you managed to do so much. Actually, you are making noise throughout the globe now. So it's really inspiring. But yeah, being a small young child and having a disease or something attached to you, how did it affect your mental health, and what do you think about having a good mental health with this condition?
Yeah, it's very tough, and I think that's a really good question. It's really hard to answer in a lot of ways, because I think mental health with IBD comes in waves, because especially when you are young, I feel like you're going through so many transitional phases already, and to add IBD is it makes everything a lot more challenging and a lot more interesting also. So I think for me, at least, it was really hard, and I'm still learning to accept my ulcerative colitis. It's people think that disease acceptance comes 2 or 3 years after diagnosis, or once you've been able to process, your ulcerative colitis for a while. But I think disease acceptance is a lifelong journey, and it's one that's going to change with time. So one time, parts of the year you might feel really invested in taking care of your health, and then other parts you're just I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to take my medications, and that's okay. I mean, that's just not to take your medications. Everyone should take their medications, but you can definitely feel like sometimes you don't want to have anything to do with your condition, and that's all right. And another thing too, particularly, so I mentioned both my parents immigrated from India, and from what I've heard and from my experience, mental health is absolutely not addressed, and in fact, it's very much looked down upon. So both my parents, they're my best support system ever, but they didn't understand the fundamental mental health comorbidities as it pertains to IBD. So IBD in mental health, it's a very physiological connection. So there's a lot of studies that show that serotonin is also manifested in the gut, and that goes to the brain, and there's a real brain-gut connection. And so I think that we need to take that part a little bit more seriously, because it's something that's really physiological, especially like I don't know if some of you guys can tell, when you have more inflammation, you get so much more anxiety and things like that. And so yeah, I think mental health and IBD are equally important to address, because I think that they very much go off each other. And for me, I think the biggest thing that's helped me cope with the anxiety that comes with my ulcerative colitis is being able to move, and movement is really important for me. So I really like to rock climb. Last year I was running a lot. So just things like that, it helps me kind of get back to the baseline of living with colitis. So.
Yeah, but still, being diagnosed in such a young age, were you able to accept that? You and also your family?
Yeah, so are you asking about access to mental health services specifically?
No. How did you accept this diagnosis and you see?
Yeah. So I truly think that I have not accepted it yet fully. So even this past year, if I'm being completely honest with you, I have not taken care of my health at all. And I have been really hard on, like traveling a lot. I've been not really having a lot of integrity for my body this past year. And it's because I've been so busy with so many things. And so I see that as not accepting my disease, because I didn't prioritize my disease and my health. And so I think that, but like 2 years ago, I was super, super on top of seeing doctors, trying to get all the medications that I need. So I feel like acceptance for me truly comes in waves. But I think that one of the ways that has really helped me cope with it is, in a lot of ways, is creating the Crohn's and Colitis Young Adults Network and the Health Advocacy Summit, because I get to see so many people going through the same thing, but at different points and stages in their life. So, just getting to talk to both of you guys from across the world is really cool, because, we share that connection, whereas we would have never met before. And it's really cool to see people dealing it with in different ways as well. So.
That's awesome. What I understand is, by doing all these, like, you're trying to cope up with your mental health and just forget that you have such a condition. Traveling and all, how do you manage? Because with this condition, I think it's really very difficult. So how do you travel and how do you manage with that?
So just to give you context, before the pandemic, I was traveling at least once a month. So my travel schedule was really hectic. I don't think it was healthy for my body. I will say that. I don't think it was a healthy and a good choice to make for myself. But I think that the reason that I was traveling, I was so passionate about, that it kind of trumped the uncertainty surrounding it. And there were times that I got like 3 hours of sleep per night and all these different things, which did not put me in a good place, for example, where I am right now. But I think I got used to it, and so I think I got used to it. And I think since I've been doing it for about 4 years now, it's just become kind of part of my life, and I've adjusted everything in order to be able to travel and still do school and all this as well. So I think it's possible, but I think you also have to be very careful about how your body is going to be affected long term as well.
Okay, I'd like to ask a question, Sneha. So, yesterday we talked with Swapna also, and one thing that I find in common with you, her, and I know some more advocates. You don't prioritize your health. This is common. So, But
Yeah.
yet, like, you are doing the best work. So what do you think is like behind that?
Yeah, that's a really hard question. And I think that's tough. I think it's partially what keeps me going and what keeps me very fulfilled is being able to do this, because it's been my entire life. Like this is has affected me my entire life. I see how hard I see the patients that are not being represented within this space as well. So, for example, a lot of patient advocates work with big pharmaceutical companies, and I used to be one of those. And I think fundamentally working with big pharmaceutical companies is not ethically okay right now because pharmaceutical companies do not provide adequate drug access to a vast majority of patients. And so what kind of gets me going and what gets me like really excited for me to be in this space is that I feel like I'm doing things ethically and I want to see more people do things ethically. And so I think for me, it's like my passion comes before my health, which I'm telling you is not always good. But I think it's really for you to figure out and what works best for yourself at the disease point that you're at as well. So if I had just got out of surgery, or if I was just about to go into surgery, if I was at that severe of a point, I would not be doing all this. But I am at a point where I can, and I've neglected my health, but I'm kind of getting back to it now with the advent of the pandemic and not being able to travel and do all these things all at once as well.
Actually, yesterday Swapna also said the same thing. Like, it's a passion, and like that comes before her health. And I think sometimes it happens the same with me, and like I wonder why it is so. And I don't know. Maybe sometime we may have to pay, but right now. Right now,
Yeah, and I will say, yeah, Nikhil, I will say too that it's not like a requirement to travel or to do all these things to be a really strong advocate. I mean, for example, Nikhil, you within your university, you have so much power to be able to use your voice and for other students with chronic illnesses, or other students who are scared to go into university with their chronic illness. I mean, you're such a perfect role model for that. And so, I mean, I consider that really powerful and meaningful advocacy in itself. My health advocacy summit and CCYN have just grown so much organically that we're at a stage where we can work nationally and internationally, but I don't think that that's always the best way to pursue advocacy. I think the best way is to start local and to get, to really, because your community best, and so it's really powerful to create these local and community-based connections as well.
That's really amazing, Sneha. So how would you manage with your food and things like when you travel? So, like, were there instances where you had to starve or something which didn't suit you? Because traveling again, it's not like so easy to manage with the food that we eat. So, how did you cope up with that?
Yeah, so I will say, I mean, it's different in India because it's your guys' food, in my opinion, is a lot better, but it's also probably not as good for people with IBD. So I was just in India a couple months ago as well. So I cheated a lot and I ate a lot of things I wasn't supposed to, but it's just so good that it's hard to resist. But so for me, my diet is really consists of just a few things. So I just eat a lot of yogurt, and I drink a lot of smoothies, for example, this. um, and yeah, and I eat a lot of bread. So I can't have like a lot of fiber or a lot of really complex things like with spices and everything, because my J pouch is very, very intolerant to a lot of foods. So I will either take like an avocado or a protein bar. So I think protein bars are huge for me because most of the time, you're right. I mean, I can't eat a lot of the food that these conferences have. And so there are some times that I do go hungry, but I'm always usually able to find like yogurt or a protein bar somewhere as well. Yeah, and there's a lot of conferences and places that will also say that they'll accommodate your food preferences, but it's never like a full accommodation. Like they'll always sneak in something that you just can't eat. And so it's always good to be prepared for that, because even if they say that they're going to have a low fiber vegetarian, high carb diet, then that's always not the case. They always mess things up a little bit. So you always have to over prepare with like your own snacks and stuff. So.
Okay, that's nice. So coming back to mental health, as a teen, what were the challenges in your school or anywhere, like along with your friends? How would you manage that along with this condition? Like, were you open? I mean, as you initially said, like initially in the initial days, you were not so open about that, but only in the high school you spoke about it. So, how did that affect in your school or the teachers? Like taking that, because seeing so many of your friends and peers running around and you having this condition with a surgery or a G pouch or something, like did that affect your mental health?
Yeah, it was really hard coming back with from my last surgery. So I was in the middle of high school when I had my last surgery. So that's kind of when I started getting back to normal and I started attending school full time and more regularly. But to be honest, looking back, I didn't have very many good friends. And I think that even if I were to try at that point to have made connections with my peers, I wouldn't have been able to, because I had just gone through something that was very serious and something that none of my peers could ever really fully understand. And I think that especially when you're, an adolescent, teenager, there's so many other things that you're worrying about. And so I think for someone with IBD, and at least for me, it seems as though I was not interested in going to like parties. We have homecoming here, which is like a huge football event. And so I guess I just was not interested in the same things that my peers were interested in. And so I really sought connections with other people with chronic illnesses as well. With that being said, now that it's been a few years, I am able to make a lot more connections with, peers that are not affected with IBD and chronic illness. I have stronger connections with my peers that have IBD, of course, but now I'm able to kind of see eye to eye with my peers who are not affected by chronic illness either. Whereas as soon as I emerged from my third surgery, I was in a space where I could not connect with anyone who hadn't gone through the same journey or who did not have IBD at that point as well. Not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. So, what is one statement that you would say for the other teens or adults who are suffering from this condition? Is it very important to have a good mental state? Because physical pain is there always with us, but only the mental condition will control that. If we see it in a positive way, that can really make a positive impact. So, what is one statement which you would try to give regarding that?
Yeah, so I mean, I would definitely say find a community, and whether that's online or through, in person, because I know that in some places it's very hard to find people in person. But I think just finding at least one other person that you can relate to and have conversations with can do a lot for you, because peer support is one of the biggest things that can help, a young adult with a chronic illness relate and accept their challenges as well. So I think, yeah, finding a community, whether that's online or in person, is really awesome. I think in person is better in a lot of ways, but it's not always accessible. And the second thing I would say is definitely try to have some form of movement in your life. So whether that be just walking as much as you can, or running or climbing or whatever you have access to, I think it's so important. No matter what stage of your disease you're at, I think just even a little bit of movement is really important. So when I was really sick, I would just walk up the stairs, and that was my movement for the day. And so I think the little bits that you can do will add up in the future. And even setting goals for yourself. So like if you want to run a marathon, you can very much run a marathon. And if you like start mile by mile, I mean, you definitely can do it. So, I mean, last year at this time, I was running 8 miles every other day. And I was on track for a marathon. But I got a respiratory illness as a result of one of my infusions. So I'm still kind of struggling with that right now, hoping to get back at it as soon as possible. But I think that if you can add a little bit of movement to your life, I think it's very important.
And
Awesome.
Sneha, uh, like we talked to a couple of parents, and whose kids have IBD, and the thing was, some parents they don't want their kids to, like think about the condition or something. So, what would you say to them, or what do you think, like? Uh, some parents, they say that, they inform their kids about the condition and they support their kids, but some parents want to like create a different kind of atmosphere where the kid doesn't know, and maybe they think differently, to not take it seriously or something. Like, what is your like take on that? And
Because in India, it's a very stigmatized topic, and not many people open up. So, what is your solution for that?
Yeah, no. I will say that my parents are very much exactly the same way. So that's why for so many years, the majority of my disease journey, no one knew. I mean, not even some of my immediate, or my cousins and stuff like that. They didn't know about my illness. It was very, very closed off. And that's really hard because I think my parents are very much still like that. So, they'll wait until I'm at my most severe point for me to get medications and that sort of thing. And there's still my best support system. They're incredible, but I think it's really hard also for caretakers because they don't want to see you like that, and they don't want to see you in pain. And I think that's what I realize is that, my parents are very much at a place where they want me to be normal, and they want me to be able to experience things like my sister does, who is not affected by a chronic illness. And so I think it's partially, I think we need, as in general, I think in India especially, but I think around the world, we need to put a little bit more of an emphasis on, understanding the caretaker perspective and how they have to also accept the disease as much as the patient does, especially when you're dealing with a kid, because at that point, parents are even more protective in a lot of ways of, the child. And so I think it's disease acceptance on behalf of parents as well, which is very, very important. And I wish that it was suggested for parents to also go see a psychologist or a therapist, because it's really hard for them. And I could not imagine having a child that would have to go through so many surgeries. It's really hard, especially when you don't have any support either. And so, so I think there's no one answer to that, but I think it would be really powerful for caretakers to be able to talk to each other, and for caretakers to be able to see, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, to be able to cope with their child's illness as well.
And yeah, like in the US, there's Camp Oasis and things where kids with IBD get together. So do you think like that would help kids, or like we don't want
Yes.
to immerse them in the they don't need to know everything about IBD, but do you think like a little bit interaction, like as a kid, did you feel alone, and like would that kind of thing have helped, or do you think for a kid that would be good?
Yes, Camp Oasis is, I think, one of the best things that could happen anywhere. So I actually went to Camp Oasis for 2 years. And it was the most supportive environment ever. I had never met so many people with IBD, and it was so crazy to me that there were people my age that were taking the same medications and that were, still both like stunted in growth and were struggling to gain weight and these sorts of things. And so, I would love to see a Camp Oasis in India. I would love to see that. And it would probably be a little bit more difficult, especially with the different geographies. But we have like 5 or 6 different Camp Oases in the U.S. So it's like divided by region here as well. But I think Camp Oasis should be everywhere. The only thing that I will say is that Camp Oasis is awesome, but it's only for 1 week. And so the rest of the year, it's like, where's the support, So it's that 1 week is the best week of the entire year. But then after that, it's like there's no real support. So that's the only thing I would change or add about Camp Oasis, is to kind of continue that support even beyond camp.
So for you, when you were a teen, like how would your non-IBD friends interact with you? How did they treat you? So what was that experience?
Yeah, so they were very careful with me. So I wouldn't say that they were real friends, because I had kind of pushed them away in a lot of ways because I didn't want them to know what I was going through. But I think for the friends that I guess at that point that I did have, they all felt very bad for me, and they all were very careful with how they talked around me, which was very hurtful in a lot of ways for me, because I never saw my condition as something that I ever wanted sympathy for. And in fact, that's like my number one pet peeve, is to be like felt sorry for, because it really affects me in a lot of ways. And so I think that was really tough, is that my peers didn't know how to navigate conversations with me, and they didn't know how to talk in a way that it didn't make me feel as though I was looked down upon. And it wasn't intentional on behalf of their part. And looking back, I could have done a lot more to educate them about, my illness and how to navigate conversations with me. But I think at that point it was hard, because it felt like there was a huge wall in between me and my friends who weren't affected by chronic illness, especially.
Yeah, almost everyone will face that here also. Like it's very hard to make people understand. So what do you think? Like one is story, sharing our story is one thing to make them understand. But other than that, like what is the other way where they can be our allies and help us to manage ourselves better?
Yeah, so I think storytelling is huge, but I mean, I think even it'd be interesting. Like, I mean, I have so many ideas that you guys could facilitate, but of course, I don't know how difficult it would be to do in India. But I think that you could even do workshops on kind of navigating conversations with a chronic illness, or even educate people about what a chronic illness is, because I feel like chronic illness is such an abstract term, because it's not something that's very definitive, whereas maybe like a wheelchair user or intellectual and developmental disability, those are more definitive in a lot of ways than our chronic illnesses, because chronic illnesses are cyclical, so they might not always affect someone. Flare-ups or not having flare-ups, and they're invisible for the most part. So I think education is really important about chronic illness. And so I think even having like large-scale workshops and stuff like that, where you guys kind of share your story, and empower other people to engage in conversations surrounding chronic illness, is really awesome. The other thing that I was really excited by is I can't remember, I think Shubham might have written this, but it was or you guys might have collectively written this, but it was really awesome to see that letter to I can't remember who it was to. I think it was to Prime Minister.
And
Yeah,
actually, it was his dad's idea, and like he had been writing every day to the Prime Minister, and this lockdown happened, and like we were thinking of doing an email thing, but like his inbox is full. So maybe after this lockdown gets lifted up, we'll resume that.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic, because even national recognition is going to empower other people to be more open about it in a lot of ways, I feel like. So I think that's really awesome. But I mean, it's really tough. I can't understand a lot of the different cultural perceptions of IBD in India, but I do know from my little experience that it's very different from the US, and it's going to take a lot of time probably. But since you guys are starting, and since you guys have already started building an advocacy base, I'm very confident that you guys will be able to do something very powerful.
Yeah, true. Because at least we are now taking a baby step, so that at least one step makes a difference. So
Yeah,
that's
no,
how where we have started. So
Yeah.
how do you think, like when you started your initiative, like were there issues that you faced with raising funds or something, or how was it?
Yeah, so fundraising, I mean, is by far the hardest part. So I can go through the process of that a little bit for us. So at first we were just getting donations from like families and friends, people that we knew that would donate like just a little bit at a time to us. But obviously, with the fellowship program and with our summits that are occurring across the nation, we can't just do like the small size donations. And so we got funded from the Helmsley Charitable Trust, which is a major funder in New York City, and the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, which is for patients with cystic fibrosis. So they funded us for the Health Advocacy Summit, which covers all chronic illnesses. And then we also got funding from the American Association of People with Disabilities, which is like the leading disability organization. And they were really excited because we were focusing on chronic illness, whereas there's not much talk about chronic illness within the umbrella disability term. So yeah, so I mean, I think the best bet is I'm not really sure how foundations work in India, but I bet there's, some philanthropic foundations that are really excited to fund initiatives or ideas like you guys might end up creating as well in India. So I think it's just finding the right people and doing a lot of research. And actually, I was looking, and I think there's one university in India that does a lot of social entrepreneurship. I don't remember which one it is. You guys might know, but there seems to be one in India, I think, that I found. So.
We will have to check out on that then. And also one more thing which ponders me is like, since even we are like just taking a baby steps and we are just like 2 months old, and not even 2 months, I think, just a month old. So like how to approach the organization, like when you also started, were you heard? Like, did they take you seriously when you said about your initiative?
Not at all. Yeah, that's really tough. And especially as a young woman too, it's a lot more difficult in a lot of ways. So like, I also don't look very old, and in a lot of ways, I'm not like a super serious person. So I definitely had to be a lot more, I had to change myself a little bit for the funders and approaching foundations. But I mean, I had an email template that I would use, and I mean, we didn't get responded to a lot, but it's just finding that one foundation or that one funder that will fund you is the biggest thing. But I mean, just know that you're probably going to get a lot of denials or a lot of people that just won't even respond. But I think that you guys are going to get a lot of traction because you're doing something that's a growing need. So I think I'm very excited about what you guys are doing, if you can't tell. But I mean, yeah, if it comes to that point, I'm happy to help and help craft emails or anything that you guys need as well for.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we need your support throughout.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you throw some light on the fellowship that you're running, CCYA?
Yes. So, I think that's my favorite thing in the entire world is the CCYN fellowship, because I think that it has a lot of potential to affect people around the world, not just in the U.S. So the Crohn's and Colitis Young Adults Network Fellowship. So, I mean, Nikhil, you could probably talk about this a little bit too, but this is our second year, and we have 8 fellows. We have 6 from different parts of the U.S., so different cities, different states. And then we have Simon from the UK, and then Nikhil, of course, from India, which we're very excited about. But we are hoping, so this year our fellows produce monthly content, whether that's written or video content. They hear from monthly speakers. So far we've heard from a gut microbiologist who focuses on nutrition as it pertains to IBD. We've heard from an IBD psychologist, which was very interesting because she explored a lot of the connections, obviously, between mental health and IBD. And then we also heard from an individual who focuses on drug pricing, so more health policy within the US, which was cool. And so we're still going to be hearing from monthly speakers here on out. And then we're most likely going to be launching our fellowship program applications, I think, mid-July for next year. So the thing about this year's fellows is that we weren't able to attend a conference, so we're still planning on doing that, but it's probably going to be delayed by several months or until it's safe for us to be able to travel, especially for Nikhil and Simon, who are coming from abroad. And so, I'm not sure if that answered the question at all. But
so how long is this fellowship?
So this fellowship is a year. With that being said, though, we are seeking ways to actively keep our fellows involved. So we don't want it to just be a year and we kind of leave them out in the blue. We really want to take an active role in promoting more connections and opportunities for them, even beyond the fellowship program.
So is there any age limit for applying for this fellowship?
Yeah, so there is no set age limit. However, the recommended is, well, you do have to be at least 18. So 18 to about 26 is what the recommended is. However, we are flexible with the age as well, as long as you're over 18 because of legal reasons.
Yeah, when I actually applied to CC1, I was already 26, and I mailed Sneha like, can I do this? And one more thing was like, I knew nothing about advocacy, and like I just wanted to learn, and like I mailed Sneha, you know, I'm already 26, can I apply?
Yeah.
And that was a
we
great
have a
thing.
fellow.
Yeah, that was a great thing that
Yeah.
you know allowed me to. And like even in my application, you know, while I was writing it, I felt like this is never going to work, and like, because
Yeah.
every line I was writing, every second line was that I know nothing, I know nothing, and then
Well, yeah, you bring up a good point, Nikhil, because we're not necessarily even looking for people who are very experienced in advocacy. I think in a lot of ways we want to find people who have never really had a platform before, and that's something I think we're going to be looking for a little bit more this year. With that being said, too, I feel like I was going to say something, but I forgot. Oh yeah, our application process is still. Last year was very, very competitive. We had to deny quite a few people, which is very upsetting because we wish we could kind of increase our platform as well. So I guess my biggest advice is apply as early as you can. I mean, we have an application deadline, but the earlier you apply, the sooner we will see applications and everything. And then one thing that we are going to change is that, or we're going to add this year, is that we're going to have like office hours for our current fellows are going to open up office hours for fellows that are interested, or potential applicants that are interested in applying for the fellowship. So you guys can ask questions to the current fellows and see kind of how to strengthen your application. And of course, I'm always here to answer questions as well. So
that is what I like, you know, like find so inspiring about you, that like, it's not about giving a platform to those people who are already doing it. It's more about giving power to other people, and
right,
enabling
absolutely.
other people to speak up for themselves, and you know, enabling other people to advocate, because not everybody. I think, I wrote an article. Not everybody gets the chance, or everybody gets a
Love
place
that.
to speak up for themselves, and like in a country like India, it's even more difficult. So like I feel really, you know, lucky to get this chance, and I'm like really indebted to you. And I think like if I hadn't joined CCYN, like I would have never started this, you know. Like I already knew all of these friends, you know, whom I started, but I never got this idea, you know, that it was feasible until I, you know, joined CCYN and like learned about your journey. And like that is like honestly, I'm just trying to emulate you, you know, what you're doing with us. I'm just trying to emulate yours, that you know, more, because it's not like a one man thing, or you know, one person thing. I think the more people speak up, then only it's going to make a difference. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're definitely right, Nikhil.
And also because Nikhil took the initiative, like we thought, though we had it in our mind that we have to do something for the society or for our fraternity, but never we ever thought that we should start it in this big scale. So when Nikhil took that initiative, yes, we have to do. That's how we all teamed up and we took this initiative. So I think somewhere CCYN has played a prominent role in making India IBD aware, I think.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. It's the best compliment I could have gotten. It just made my day. It made my whole year. So thank you. Appreciate that.
So we'll just check if some people have some questions.
So do you have any bar or number of applicants which you are selecting for every year?
Yeah, so this year we selected 8, and that was because I just I could not get the number down to 6 because there were too many awesome people. So this year we're shooting for 6, but knowing myself, it might go up a little bit. So we'll see. But hopefully 5 or 6, especially because of the pandemic, we might have to downsize a little bit with our fellowship applicants and stuff like that. And we're hoping to choose some more diverse fellows this year as well. So, but yeah, last year we had quite a few applicants. So this year we have to start early because we had to read all the applicants and applications in 1 month and interview people. So everyone who applies gets an interview as well. So we want to be able to talk to you guys in person because kind of like Nikhil touched on, we are not sure, people's advocacy experience or people's writing experience. So we don't want to go solely based on the application and miss someone who is able to articulate things very well and someone who's very passionate, more so through video rather than through articles.
And Sneha, when I applied, there was nobody, like you said, there were not many applicants from India. So will you encourage people from other countries, like similar developing countries where there's do you want them to apply to?
Yes, I mean, that's one of my personal goals. Definitely is to find people who are maybe not as much, U.S. based this year. I think it's really important to include people from the U.S. as well. There's just a lot more resources and opportunities here with that being said. So it's just really hard to find people from other countries as well. The one thing I will say too is it's also tricky because they have to be able to speak English and to be able to at least write a little bit in English and to be able to understand English. So that's where we run into some of the barriers because unfortunately we don't have the capability to be able to translate and to have someone translating everything yet. So that's going to be our one requirement, is that they are able to speak and understand English. So even just at a baseline.
So since we all are still young, and what is one thing which you have as a suggestion for young IBD advocates and also the patients from your side?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me and something that I've had to learn naturally is keep pushing and just keep persisting no matter who tells you what in your life. So I said my parents are incredibly supportive. They are, but there are often people who tell me to take it easy or to take a step back. And so you know yourself best and you know your body best. And so I think it's really important for you and for all of us to do what we want to do in life and not have our disease hold us back in a way that we can be doing what we want to do, but it's only because we have the IBD diagnosis that we're not doing what we want to do. So for example, I'm really interested in pursuing law degree or potentially an MD, so an MD-JD joint degree. And so I'd love to do health law. And so I have everyone telling me from all these different corners, like, no, your health is not good enough for this. But up till this point, I have been able to do so much with everyone telling me all these things. And so that's the one thing that really irks me, is that you can do what you want to do. Of course, keep your health in mind and keep your health at a forefront. That's very important. But don't let other people tell you what you can and can't do. I think that's huge. And something that you're going to have to learn, throughout your entire disease journey, because people are going to have their opinions at every point of the way.
Yeah, and I think that is sometimes a very difficult line to walk, and it's very difficult to, sometimes you get self-doubt also, should I really do this, and everyone around me saying, don't do it. And but I think, if you believe in somewhere deep down that, maybe you can do this, and I think if there's enough of a, maybe the same word, passion or want for that thing, then I think we should go for it. And that kind of attitude, personally I find is missing in a lot of people in India, and so that is what I hope to change. But I think we are trying to change it, but I think it will take some more time and it will take more people.
Yeah, and I will say, it is very, very different in India because for the most part, from my understanding, you guys don't have accommodations built in place within the education system. You know, employers, I mean, it's very different. I think what I say, I have to backtrack a little bit because I have some sort of privilege in the sense that I have accommodations within my school system, and it's a legal right to have accommodations. So if my school system does not follow accommodations, then they will be sued. So it's a little different, but I mean, I think you guys should see yourself as paving the way for other young adults with chronic illnesses as well. So getting through the education system, getting through the workplace, and that's really going to show people that they can do it. It's probably going to be very challenging in a lot of ways, but I mean, you guys are the ones paving the way, and you guys are the best people to do it because you're living through it. So it's awesome.
Yeah, like how you said, sharing our stories can have a huge impact, so that many people will get to know, and others will also like try to address this in a better way and try to accept ourselves, and many things will just get into place, I think, once that happens.
Yeah, and you know, I think the big thing is to just try to ignore what people say, because I mean, I know how some Indian aunties are too. They always have their opinion in a lot of ways, at least the ones that I'm around here. So, but I think it's just going past a lot of the opinions that people have, and it's really tough to do that because, Nikhil, as you said, there's a lot of self-doubt. So, yeah, I mean, just kind of getting past that and learning to get past it and knowing that it's a process is really huge. I think for me, my sister was really big. She always really pushed for me as well. So I was lucky to have my older sister too. Yeah.
That's nice. Thank you so much, Sneha, for giving your time and sharing your story, your journey, and also about the fellowship. We are really truly blessed to have you here. And I think, like, I personally learned a lot from you. Like, as a young advocate for patients, there's a lot to learn from you. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So we'll end here, and so we'll end here, and yeah, thank you once again, Sneha, and yeah, thanks a lot for doing this.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm so excited to meet all of this. It'll be really great.
Yeah, so bye. Bye everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.